Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a special guest for you today coming out of Dallas, Serah D'Laine, and she's got a very fascinating journey and story that she's used to leverage to help clients turn their personal brands into businesses. And she's comes from the Hollywood, Los Angeles. She's a celebrity actress turned psychology expert, and she uses various modalities such as personal development, NLP, and I'm really happy to have her on to discuss her experiences and how she helps clients brand themselves, position themselves. And Serah, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, I'm really excited for a fun conversation. And if I can lend something to your audience, then I've done a portion of my passion and mission.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
yeah. And coming from Hollywood, which is one of the toughest industries, it's basically dog eat dog. What was that like for you? And you have a $1 million tip that Hollywood taught you that you use to teach clients.
Yeah, greatly
Yeah.
on that one. It taught me a lot of things, obviously, but one of the main pieces that has supported me in transitioning into building my own business and being in even greater entrepreneurial sort of a space, if you will. One of the most fascinating things that I think will really lend to your listeners is everything. And it is, if somebody paid me $1 million, like Hollywood taught me this like no other. And I use it to this day in branding and marketing. I preach this so to my clients know if you've been listening or following me for a while. But one of the most valuable things that I ever learned was it is all about positioning. And so in Hollywood, sure, but not everybody can relate to being in that type of industry, but they can relate to being in high competitive industry, everybody wanting to do similar things as you. And how do you stand out and how do you differentiate yourself? And most importantly, then how do you position yourself in the market to attract the ideal client, right? Not the I want to work with everybody, but I want to work with those badass, high achieving, go getting individuals for whatever your individual product is, right? So it would be unique to what that is. And it has so much psychology in it. It is what building a brand is about. That is not colors and logos. It's deeper than that. And you get to create this thing that you get to 100% own. And even more importantly, you get to become this, I guess, better or best version of yourself, or that always like striving for better. Who do you get to become in the process? So positioning is all wrapped up in that.
Yeah. And so what the other question I have for you is 'cause Hollywood is in basically an industry that's what was the most important thing that you learned about building a brand?
The most important thing about building a brand, from you want one thing. So building your brand, and again, I'll circle back to, I think more people are more versed in this since kind of the term has become a buzzword more so in coming years. The more that people have personal brands, the more that people are owning or building their own businesses or transitioning out of corporate maybe and starting something on your own. This concept of build a brand. The reason why I'll start with saying I'm passionate about personal branding is because that's the greatest asset that you can create, cultivate, build. And then you can go and create anything that you want from there, or create products or white label, or from services to products, switch industries, if you will. And that was a big piece for me as well. And so if people listening, if they've ever had to be in a situation where you found yourself going down a path and then all of a sudden something changes in that path and you are redirected, and sometimes you're like, I don't know what to do now. I thought everything was going this way. And whether it was a bigger force from the universe or something you chose yourself, one of the things that I found that I could then rely on is understanding that you as a brand, like you, everybody has a personal brand, but then are you now leveraging that to venture into other avenues, to make it profitable? I think everybody has one, but are you looking at it from a perspective of how do I show up in the world? How do I show up in my community or on a greater stage, if you will? Everyone has social media, so that is the stage now, so to speak. And personal branding is almost becoming the new celebrity, if you will. So building your brand, building who you are and what you want to bring to the world. That's why I say it's the number one highest, most valuable asset that anyone can invest in building. And what you do with that can inspire people for hopefully the better.
Mm,
The goal. So I don't know if that entirely answers your question, but a brand is so many different things. It's more than logos and it's more than colors. And it's like you're taking everything that you are, all the things that you're passionate about, all the things that you have an expertise in, combining that with what do you want your voice to be in the world? Who do you want to be? And what do you want to say? It's more than just being seen, it's being heard. And when
mm.
you're heard, what is it that you want to say that ideally, hopefully, would bring inspiration to others or create impact or create a difference in the world?
Yeah, and I love that. And clients that come to you, and I know you speak on a lot of different stages, what's the number one thing that they struggle with in building a personal brand? What is it? What mindset, or is it their story? What do they struggle with?
I love that question. It would depend on each stage, right? So some people come to me in their beginning, and some people come to me and they've already had success. Maybe they've reached a certain figure in mind, and now they might need to rebrand or they need to readjust things so they can get to that higher level, whatever that is. And we take each individual person or client separately, right? Everybody's unique, I believe, even if they're doing the same thing. And that's part of my job, is to help them find how they're different. And that is actually one of the biggest challenges, because they're like, was doing this, and so is doing this, and so is also doing this. And how do I showcase my expertise in a way that's not better than anyone, but that would be different, valuable, and still authentically me, and showcase, again, their voice, what they want to be heard, how they want to be heard in the world. So that's an overarching thing. When we get more nuanced into their business and their business model, because it's great. Yay, we can build the brand, we can build the vision of the brand. Now it's how do you make it profitable? And so in after doing this for many years and making my own plenty of mistakes and plenty of successes, I found a formula that I stripped away everything that I was doing and I put it into a 3-pillar sequence. And that is persona, presence, and profit. And the presence is, who are you? Who is your brand out in the world? What is your online presence? Ties into your messaging, your voice, ties into colors. Then you move into profit, and it's great. What is a viable product or service that can meet the market needs, that can be profitable? So we're looking at market research mixed with what someone is passionate about, mixed with their expertise, and putting systems together. And how are we going to put that onto this digital platform for the world to purchase? And so we have softwares and systems. It gets super, super nerdy, but our software that we back and I'm so passionate about is called iSkill CRM. And it's just the all-in-one. It'll put your pipeline to your website, to all of your offers. Like, it will do everything. And it makes the world. I've been waiting for years for something like this to be out there. And so that's the third pillar. And of course, yes, we do include the persona piece. I don't want to say it's the least talked about. It's just, when the smartest entrepreneurs and CEOs know that aside from your mind, aside from personal development, the thing that you need the most aside from strategy and systems, the thing that you need most is, how are you showing up when you get in the way? When I don't believe in imposter syndrome, I will die on this earth disproving and challenging that imposter syndrome is a thing, but it's a buzzword and it's a challenge. And everybody has fears or insecurities, or gosh, we self-sabotage. I'm still guilty. I got to check myself on that sometimes. It's a process for sure. It's a day-to-day adventure and opportunity for becoming the better version of yourself every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really one thing, but what we really love doing is helping people define how they're different and turning that into a profitable product, and then helping them create systems around that so they can automate it and streamline it. And then when your shit gets in the way, excuse me for saying, when you get in your own way, then we have some really powerful parts work psychology, NLP techniques that work really well for that.
Wow. Yeah, very powerful. And because you touched upon imposter syndrome, and I think we have a lot of female entrepreneurs listening.
Good.
And how do you deal with imposter syndrome in this day and age? Just you have so much going on and feelings of you don't deserve it, or you're a fake, all of that. How do you deal with that?
There's so many. Yeah, the internal dialogue is so different for everyone. That I actually do bring, and every entrepreneur can relate to this. You don't have to be an actor to know this. Everyone is the lead of their own life. You are the star of your show. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're the financier, the producer, and everything else, right? The imposter syndrome and that internal dialogue, actors, right? You have the lines, and then you have that internal voice, and it either is really positive and you are your best cheerleader, or on the days when it doesn't feel so great, it can be really toxic in there too. Like I said, I will be the first to raise my hand that I got to quiet some internal dialogues at many times, because you're striving for more. I feel every female entrepreneur will know this. You want more, you dream big, you have huge aspirations, and absolutely. And we want more. I love watching women dream big and go out there and achieve those things. And I feel like more women want more of that so that we can see what's possible or be inspired on those days when that internal dialogue is really, you just wish you could just detach your head sometimes. We're women, we overthink. We do. We're notorious. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a female entrepreneur, you are overthinking 99% of the time. Yes. And it's one of the reasons why I say that I won't claim that imposter syndrome is a thing. It's a buzzword, right? It's a term, because we need to put labels on things to try to categorize so our mind can understand it. And yet I believe it's not imposter syndrome. It's what I call a parts problem. And this goes into parts work psychology, because you have that internal dialogue that will say negative things, and that's a part of you. And I'm an absolute nerd for naming them, just like you do as a character in a movie. It's like you're watching, if you could like project from your mind like a little R2D2 laser out, and you could project it and watch whoever is talking as if it's a character, and then name that character and give her a whole outfit and everything. Right? My perfectionist, her name is Patricia. She's annoying, or I should say, and she is also needed, because on her best days, that part of me, that part of you, if you have the perfectionist or perfectionitis, she maintains excellence. She sets a high standard. She's the one that maybe is responsible for, maybe she's not the big dreamer. That might be another visionary part of you, but she's the one that will execute and execute it excellently. Right? And so we have these different parts of us. So imposter syndrome is a part of you that is just in conflict with, let's say, that big dreamer or the positive one. And so when we can just in a really healthy and loving, authentic way acknowledge those different parts of us and acknowledge that internal dialogue, then we can build a relationship with it, and we can give it more love and care and attention that it's wanting. It's like a little kid, right? That when it gets louder, it wants the attention of something. And sometimes you have to ask it to sit down. And sometimes it's there for a purpose. Maybe you're procrastinating. Maybe you're slacking off a little bit, and Patricia needs to come in and be like, bitch, what are you doing? We'll up our excellence. You're slacking a little bit. You know what I mean? So love for her for that. I love when Patricia comes in. She will, like, if I'm not keeping myself in check, Like, she'll keep it in check. I know it sounds like I jokingly will tell my clients all the time, I might make you think you're a little schizophrenic because we're like this part of you and this part of you. And how
Mhm.
many different personality types do you have? Jung called them archetypes. I just
Uh,
don't think we only have 12. So yeah, it gets fun to identify them, and it gets even more fun to have that relationship and then have them all on the same page. And that's what I believe is real true alignment. You know where you're going and all cylinders are firing straight when all of the parts of you are they're all on the same page. They all have the same mission and they're not arguing with each other or their energy is not displaced. Patricia's energy, if she's the or if she's the perfectionist, displaced energy, she's going to hold me back. Well placed energy, she's going to be my highest level of excellence.
Yeah, and I love that last statement, well-placed energy. And you earlier on, you talked about your journey marked by reinvention, especially with Hollywood. Everything's in flux and reinventing yourself, which you've wonderfully done. And a lot of people, they come into this area like thought leadership or influence, and they want to become celebrities. And so talk about the dangers of celebrities, because earlier on, another podcast guest, he was talking about people chasing, either they're chasing something and it's like they feel like this glitz and glamour is going to solve all of their problems, and then or they're running away from something like some emotional childhood trauma. And so what did Hollywood teach you about that, and how you help clients with the process of reinvention?
Mm. And I love that you said that. And honestly, both could be true. Like you could be running away from something and that
Yeah.
might be needed, and you could be wanting to create something, and both are valid, right? We've all run away from things, and yet that led us maybe into a greater purpose, right? Like we've all
Yeah.
been there. Whatever your path currently is, I'm sure it's correct for where you currently are. I I mean, talk about reinvention, right? Like you get redirected, and sometimes you're like, man, was that the right thing to do? And there's no right or wrong if you're following. I'm really big on following intuition or spirit or God, whatever your preference and term is. But when you're in alignment with that, there's no wrong. Have I come back and questioned it sometimes? Ooh, I don't know. It's like the relationship. You're like, oh, should I? That may have not been the best thing, but you learned a lot. So to answer your question more specifically, yes, I believe anybody should reinvent themselves ideally every 9 years.
Wow.
Put that as like a scope if you wanted to calculate. Those of my little bit, we won't go too deep into the woo, but those of my friends that know about numerology, they'll be like, that's what she meant. And so coincident, my first mean reinvention happened. It was in a 9 year.
Mm.
And looking back, I am so grateful. Was it challenging? Was it scary? Absolutely. But I have so much fear that like my internal dialogue was like, oh my God, like I don't know what I'm doing. And then it's like, who really does? And then you find your way. And to me, reinvention, I, at that time, just to give context, because I started so young and I loved it. And I loved the psychology and I loved the art of storytelling and creating and possibility thinking and Hollywood's kind of fantasy land. As much as it's hard work, there's also this ability that you get to create anything that you want. You get to be anything that you want, right? That's the kind of like behind the curtains. The energy behind that is. You got to wade through a lot of crap to get there. But if you have possibility thinking, then where there's a will, there's a way, right? So it teaches you determination in especially the face of rejection, multiple times rejection. And can
Yeah.
you keep going? And I feel like every entrepreneur, I have definitely applied those skills where it's just, I don't know how to hear no now. I don't know how to hear no. You just have to keep going. And so inside of reinvention at that time, because I started so young, when the industry changed and I was changing, so it was this apex of, I was going through a deep spiritual journey. I go into it sometimes, but I had a near-death experience at the time,
Mm.
a whole other episode. And Won't go into details of that, but it was
Mhm.
powerful, and everyone maybe might be able to relate, like, just a experience in life that it just radically detours you, and like your whole reality is shifted for a moment. If anybody's gone through that or just felt unnerved by life, where you're like, oh, I thought I was on this train, and it's like you get knocked off the train and you have to like rebalance, and you're like, okay, I let me just find my footing again. And the industry went on strike. That was the first biggest strike. Actors, directors, writers, every so nobody was working. Nobody. And so now I find myself like trying to find footing at the same time that I can't find work in a community and an industry that has been my safety, my everything that I've known, and where I was working consistently. So that safety, everything was shook. Everything.
Mm.
While trying
Mhm.
to find footing, going back to something that felt safe wasn't an option because it was currently on strike. Nobody was doing anything, right? So it wasn't an option. And so I literally had no other choice to I either sit there and do nothing, which that just plays into victim mindset. And that's, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, like that might be an option for half a second. And then you're just like, F this, I can't be here with this victim mentality. What am I going to do now? And so I reinvented, and I picked myself up, and I was like, if I don't take this opportunity to do this now and try something completely new after so much safety and security and building a career, if I don't pivot radically, and everyone thought I was lost my mind for doing it. And maybe I did, but maybe I found alignment with, I was listening to that inner calling, if you will, that was like, go here.
Mm.
What if you did this? And that, I think, lends to, like I said, like I learned possibility thinking from Hollywood. So it was like, what would be the possibility if I did this over here that I've never done before? And I have no idea, but I can learn. And I love learning and I love understanding. And I just became a sponge for everything. Anything and everything, not everything. The things that I was passionate about learning were branding and marketing, and then deeper psychology and
Mm.
understanding your truest self. And then I wrapped all of that together. And at the same time, people were coming to me asking for advice and coaching and consulting on, it was usually themselves, it was in relationships, their
Mhm.
life. And then I learned actual strategies and tools to apply. I had some intuitive wisdom, if you will, some life skills that I would imbue. And then I was just like, okay, what I needed to learn for myself, right? After going through
Mhm.
that challenge, I applied those tools to me and they worked really well. And I got very dedicated, obsessed with learning NLP, hypnotherapy, parts work psychology, all of that. And I started helping people and created a lot of really, I still to this day have people send me messages that were like, wow, we watched your video, or we read your post, or whatever it was, and it helped me get through this, or it helped me get through that. So
Yeah.
I built a whole business around it. And then that shifted and people said, well, how did you do that? So that naturally just had me, I was using my personal brand and my skills and my passion and roll that all into one. Yeah. Long story long, but
Interesting.
reinvention.
Yeah.
Follow. Sometimes we do it intentionally. Like I said, I'm a believer now to be proactive. Do it every 9 years. More than that, if you want to. Do it every 9 months. Something that feels stagnant, reinvent. Are you getting too lax? Are things boring? You need to coach up, go learn something, go reinvent, go create something new. Like, do something, put some more fuel into the fire and reinvent, change it up. People get bored.
Yeah. How can
So
people connect with you and learn more from you? And if they wanted more coaching or help with their personal brand, how can they do that?
thank you. Yes. Personal website is serahdelaine.com. You'll notice the spelling is a little bit differently. So, yes, it's Serah with an E, DLAINE.com. One of the things that we're working on this year is we're creating a newsletter that I'm excited to read, that I was like, what can help people, and what kind of a newsletter would people actually really want to read that's valuable and has good tips? Because I read all these newsletters. I'm like, I'm bored. I want to sit on my Sunday morning with my coffee and I want to chew into something that then I can actually go and apply into my business for myself, for my own mind and emotional balance, and for my business. So we're building that right now, and we've got some free trainings that you can register for the next live for. Everything's on the website, or just absorb more. Like I became the sponge to learn. I want people to get to know me, and if I resonate with people, awesome. So watch the videos, download. There's tons of free goodies on the website. For if anybody's watching that's more of like CEO and companies, they would want to go to stage8.com, which is my agency, and we can talk about all that stuff.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Excellent.
we're just reach out on Instagram or LinkedIn.
Excellent.
That's where we hang out.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on, and what a passionate conversation, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really lovely. I appreciate you asking some really great questions that hopefully lend well to your audience. Thank you.